Hello everyone and welcome to Felix's Space Time. In today's video I've got an interview with Liliana Villarreal, the Artemis-II Landing and Recovery Director. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. First of all, thank you so much for agreeing to come on here for an interview. I can't wait to get my questions answered today. First of all, for those who might not know you, could you tell everyone a bit about yourself?
My name is Lily. My real name is Liliana Villarreal, but I go by Lily. I currently work for NASA, and I am the NASA Artemis Landing and Recovery Director. It's my responsibility to lead the team that will be waiting for the crew to splash down in the Pacific after they come back from the moon. And our job is to recover not only the crew, but also the capsule that comes back from orbit.
Amazing. How many people are included in the landing and recovery team? How many people does it take to get these astronauts and the hardware back safely onto land?
That's a good question. It's actually a very large team. Not only are we dealing with recovering the crew, but we're also recovering the capsule. And we do this in partnership with the military, specifically the Navy. But we also have support from Air Force and Marines who are also support us back on the bases. So from a NASA perspective, our team is large because we have to have a team that deals with crew from a medical perspective to also the suit technicians who help us with the suits. There's also a lot of people that are involved with the recovery of the capsule. And then we have my test management team. So it ends up being probably from the NASA side, upwards to like 80 plus people. Now, from the military, we're actually very lucky to be able to partner with the military, and we are on their naval ship. And so that ship is obviously has to have a lot of people to manage that ship. So from the military side, it's probably hundreds of people that come on that ship from the DoD side, Department of Defense. So
Amazing.
it's a very large team.
Yeah, definitely. What kind of preparations have this team already been through in preparation for Artemis-II? And do you believe your team is ready to tackle whatever comes at them?
Well, we've been building on a lot of tests. We had a flight called EFT-1. EFT-1 was the first flight of Orion that went basically. We launched it on a Delta IV Heavy, and it went and did one loop around the Earth and then landed back. We were testing the heat shield then. So our team had to learn how to recover the crew module even as far back as that mission. And then we had to prepare for the Artemis-I mission, which is the first time this capsule was coming back at the velocities that it would see coming back from the moon. And so we've had a lot of underway recovery tests, is what we call them, URTs, in preparation to be able to learn, get our procedures in place, and train our people to be able to recover the capsule. We're currently on underway recovery test number 12. Now, after Artemis-I, we got really good at being able to recover the capsule. And after Artemis-I, we now had to get our procedures in place and train to be able to get the crew out of the capsule. And so we've had currently two underway recovery tests, number 10 and number 11, that has prepared us to be ready to support the mission. As of today, I think our team is ready for a mission. It's a little early, we're not launching until no earlier than September 2025, but I can confidently say that we have been able to do a lot of testing to say that we're ready. In fact, underway recovery test 11, we took the actual Artemis-II crew out with us, and we did a lot of demonstrations and training with them. For right now, until we go do our next recovery test, we're refining our procedures. We're taking a lot of lessons learned from the last underway recovery test, so we can get better at and more efficient at doing these operations. But I would say our team is ready. Our job is to train, as we get closer to the mission, to train the actual ship that will be responsible for the recovery. As you know, the Navy has different ships, so we don't know what ship we'll be on. So that's the last bit of training that we will do before the actual recovery, is to train the military.
Amazing. Kind of building on your answer there. How closely will your team work with the astronauts kind of leading up to the mission? And how big of a part is your team as a part of their training process? How big is the recovery? kind of part of their training?
Well, everything that the astronauts are training right now is just as important as the launch and recovery and even the on-mission support. So we were very fortunate that we had a lot of opportunity to do the recovery part of the crew training early in their training. And so we've kind of completed a lot of the training that we have done with them. And so uh, what's left to do now with the Artemis-II crew is really to go do those contingency simulations with flight directors out of JSC and possibly the crew to make sure that we prepare ourselves for when things go wrong and just make sure that we know what to do in those kind of scenarios. But from a training out in the open ocean with our team, we just completed that in last February, just couple months ago, and it was a great event. We had a really great time with the crew. They were amazing.
Wonderful. You talked about processes and procedures. Can you walk me through these procedures that the landing and recovery team carries out between Orion and its crew members touching the ocean to everyone being safely back on dry land?
Sure. Once the decision is made of where it's going to land and the time, we'll always know what time it's going to land based on the day that we launch. And we just don't know where we're going to land because as we get closer to the splashdown, decisions will be made relative to where it's the safest to land relative to weather. And so we will go out probably 5 days before they splash down on the Navy ship and start heading out to whatever site we NASA, along with the military, decide that this is probably the best place to land based on weather conditions. So our goal is to be at that site 24 hours before splashdown. And then what we do is we wait and we deploy our small boats that come out of the vehicle, the Navy ship, because we use Navy divers in small boats, very similar to how it was done during Apollo, to go out to the capsule and help the crew come out of the capsule. We recover the crew, what we call in open water, and we hoist the crew up in helicopters and bring them back on the ship. Now, we get positioned about 2 hours before splashdown, just deploy all the small boats, deploy the Navy divers, deploy all the equipment that we're going to need to get them out. And then we wait for that splashdown. We're at a distance where we know it's safe for us as the vehicle's coming down and debris comes down. When it deploys its parachutes, there's a few debris that comes down. We don't want to be in that area to protect our people. But bottom line is, after splashdown, it's a pretty dynamic event. We need to verify that the crew is well. And then about 15 minutes after they land, the vehicle should go through its first power down sequence. And that's when the handover from Houston is turned over to me, the NASA recovery director. And then we go through our procedures to get the divers close to the vehicle and open the hatch and start getting the crew out. We should be getting the crew out and back on the ship in less than 2 hours after splashdown. And then the next up is configuring the capsule internally to get ready to bring it into the ship. We have a ship that has a well deck in the back, and we literally float the capsule into the well deck. And then we drain the well deck, and the capsule is positioned over a stand that we use to transport it when we get back home. But that's pretty much the sequence of events.
Amazing. So kind of talking a bit more about the hardware now, included in your role of recovering the astronauts safely, you also make sure that Orion hardware gets safely back to land, back to the teams. Can you walk me through the process of recovering the hardware in particular, kind of the process it takes? Kind of could you elaborate a bit more on the last answer?
Sure. When we get ready to bring the capsule into the ship, what we do is the ship starts heading towards the capsule, and we capture the capsule with this winch with a very long line of rope where we connect that rope to the capsule basically when the ship is in parallel to the capsule, and then the ship goes forward and then the capsule gets to the rear of the ship, and from there our winch that's attached to this rope starts pulling the capsule in, and then we have some boats that help steer and make sure the capsule stays from a lateral perspective right in line with the back of the ship. When we get close to the ship, we actually attach more lines to the capsule. We attach about 4 more lines to make sure that when we bring that capsule over the gate of the well deck, now we have really proper um, we have proper control of the capsule so it doesn't move and bang against the ship. And so it's a very slow process. The well deck is actually flooded to about 8 feet, and then that allows the capsule to just basically just be positioned into the well deck. We have a big stand where it's designed specifically for the capsule to just go in, and then once we have it right over exactly where we want it to be, we just start draining the water, and then just the capsule will just rest on the stand as the water starts receding. And that particular stand is the same stand that we'll use to move the capsule out of the well deck when we arrive back on port. We move it with these very big forklifts. And then we have the capability to put the capsule, there's some processing we'll do of the capsule before we're ready to ship it back to Kennedy Space Center. We can either ship it back by truck or we could ship it back by air. We'd like to ship it back by air on a C-17 because it gets the capsule quicker back to Kennedy Space Center so that we can process some hardware for the next flight. But we could do it either way. We could go by road or we could go by air.
Amazing. Talking a bit more about the recovery team, for such a big effort as this, what do the landing and recovery teams have to go through to be ready to recover? I know you talked a bit about the kind of the in the ocean kind of training. As there, I'm guessing there's more training kind of away from.
Yes. I have different kinds of people in my team. I have an air ops team. I have an open water team. I have a medical team. I have a suit team. I have the well deck team that knows how to handle the capsule. So every one of those teams has different kinds of training. So for example, the air ops team has to train with the squadron that has the helicopters. We use the helicopters to help us with imaging requirements as the capsule is coming down and before splashdown. There's some really important imagery that we want to capture, and we have some great equipment that captures that imagery. So, and that's our team taking that imagery, and we basically hitch a ride on their helicopters to be able to do that imaging. So they go through some pretty intensive training. You know, they have to learn how to do crew survival training in case a helicopter has any incident. They have to train on the equipment, and then they have to keep their certifications. So they actually go out to San Diego and train with the Navy helicopter team about every 6 months or so. So it's just an example. Everybody has kind of different training. And then we all come together on these underway recovery tests to basically do a mock simulation of the entire event. So we integrate ourselves and run through our procedures and make sure that when the day of launch happens, we are very much right on our timelines and expectations. And then we have to really practice and learn what if scenarios. That's, to me, one of the most important things of having your team be ready. You can train them all you can about things going perfectly, but the best training that they're going to get is the training of what if something happens, so that they can react quickly when things like that arise.
Amazing. When Artemis-II splashes down after the trip around the moon, where will you be? Will you be in a control room directing your team, or will you be out with the capsule in the open ocean? And what is kind of your active role during that recovery?
I have asked to be on a boat. They won't let me. No. Actually, I have to be in the ship in a control room because I am integrating everything. And so it's basically I'm in this room with no windows, and I get all the communication and all the video feeds, and I pretty much go through our commands and anything else that needs to be done from that perspective. And once we get the crew on board and we get the capsule on board, or start getting the capsule on board, I'll move over to the well deck and make sure operations complete there. But I'm basically in a room, in a control room, kind of like a conductor running the orchestra.
All right. Okay. So after this Artemis-II mission is done, they've splashed down. You've delivered the hardware and the astronauts back to dry land. What will your team do until the next Artemis mission? Do you plan on being do you plan on being the director for that splashdown for future Artemis missions?
Well, I would tell you that this is like one of my most favorite jobs I've had with NASA. I really love it. And as if I continue to love this job, I want to continue to do it. It would be really awesome to be the NASA recovery director for the people that come back from the moon, especially the first woman who's going to come, who has been to the moon. I would be honored to be their recovery director for that mission. Whether I will be or not, it's really up to the future that, decisions that get made as to where I need to be for the best of NASA. But I definitely, if they'll take me, I will continue to do this job as long as I can.
Wonderful. So what are your plans for the future?
Oh, my plans for the future. I'm really proud of working in the Artemis program. I tell you, I came from the International Space Station program, which I was just as proud to have helped assemble the International Space Station. And it's just amazing the things that we're doing there. But when I moved over to the Artemis program, I just really love being a part of this program because it's about exploration and going farther away and trying to figure out a way for us to live in other areas besides Earth, other, um, I was going to say planets. Eventually, our goal is to go to Mars, right? But could you imagine what the future is going to look like after we start going back to the moon? And that's what really excites me about working in this program. So I will probably be working Artemis in some capacity, hopefully still in the same job until it's time to retire. When I finally get to that age of retirement, or I finally think that I'm ready to pass on the baton to the younger generation, and they got it.
Amazing. So these next two questions are for people, some of my subscribers. Sahil wants to know, what's the difference between Artemis and Apollo's landing and recovery systems?
It's very interesting that the CONOPS is very similar. And when I say the CONOPS, is about recovering the astronauts in the open water. We're getting them out and putting them on a raft and then hoisting them up to a helicopter and getting them back on the capsule. Some Apollo missions, they actually left the astronauts on board the capsule and then brought them out inside the capsule. It was kind of different depending on the mission. This is a slightly different animal. This capsule is much a bit larger and also weighs more. Significantly more. We can't really hoist it that easy, which is why we do the well deck option. When it comes back, it weighs more than 32,000 pounds because it absorbs water also after landing. But there's a lot that we learned from Apollo, a lot of things that they did well, a lot of things that they learned from that we use to develop our CONOPS. And it just goes to tell you that, they did some things right in the 60s. And we definitely wanted to do it more efficient. We have obviously better capability. We have more insight into what is going on with our video feeds, our communication. We use a lot of cameras out in the open water, things that Apollo didn't have, so that we have more situational awareness. And obviously, this capsule is more advanced, obviously, than Apollo. So more systems that we have to know about, and then how do we react if a system doesn't work, etc. So, but we learned a lot from Apollo, and that has really helped us develop what we're going to do for Artemis.
Amazing. This next question is from Andrew, kind of to do with the Apollo as well. Were you able to use historical planning from the Apollo landings and recoveries to plan the Artemis recoveries, or did you start from scratch, kind of, or did you take little bits kind of to?
I think it was both. We definitely went back. This is before my time, but the team that developed this CONOPS did extensive work on finding out the history of Apollo. They actually met with a lot of people who supported those recovery operations during Apollo. They also talked with some of the astronauts that were part of Apollo. They even talked to some of the Navy people that were on the ships, and they got a lot of information. And then there was a lot of trace studies about what is the best way to recover the crew. With this type of vehicle, it's important for us to get the crew out of the capsule within 2 hours. That's really our requirement, and really the best way to do that is in the open water, because the vehicle has to be brought into a well deck. That takes a little longer, and so it really drove our CONOPS. I would tell you that there is no wrong way of how to capture a vehicle. You could do it differently post landing. You know how SpaceX does it. They do amazing how they do it, and the way that we do it is just different. But it's both sides. We have a mission, and that is to get the crew home safely. And whatever capability and procedures meet that requirement is really the right way to do it.
Amazing. Kind of one other question that's kind of popped up in my head.
Yeah.
If Artemis was to do a land straight onto land, how would that change kind of your team's kind of job and procedures?
Well, that's pretty interesting. I'm not sure if it could, but if it did, we definitely have a rescue team ready to go from the Air Force that is on alert, ready to deploy off of a C-17 with hardware to recover the crew. I would say it would be a pretty rough landing for them because the capsule is really meant to land on in water. But we will go wherever we have the capability to send a team to wherever they land. And this would happen also in case something happened during the entry and they landed away from the recovery forces. We would, and far away from the recovery forces, which did happen once in Apollo. We would deploy our rescue team that's ready and alert at a couple of bases that we have in the United States and go and deploy the C-17s. And this is the same posture that the commercial crew program currently does for whenever there's a SpaceX Dragon launch in case they land when they're not supposed to, or the new upcoming Boeing CFT Starliner. So same kind of rescue method.
Amazing. Well, thank you. That's my last question for you today. Thank you so much for coming on here for an interview today. I love getting to know you and getting to know kind of your team's job. And I can't wait to watch Artemis-II come land back in the ocean.
Me too. All right, well, thank you, Felix.
Thank you, and have an amazing rest of your day.
You too.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and check out my Patreon page in the description. See you next time.